Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, where you will learn how to streamline SkySlope to work for you. Our goal here at Allison James is to always give back to our agents by providing education, training sessions, live webinars, and live events, along with full broker support and the most up-to-date tools and technology available. We are always looking for new tools and are glad to be able to provide them to our agents at a lower or discounted price so you can keep all of your hard-earned commissions. For those joining us who aren't Allison James Estates and Homes agents, we are a nationwide brokerage that offers 100% commission, 100% support, and 0 franchise fees. Why would you want to split your hard-earned commissions if you don't have to? For more information about Allison James Estates and Homes, please visit us at ajicareers.com. Also, today's webinar is sponsored by our preferred lender, Movement Mortgage. If you would like more information about Movement, please feel free to send a message in the chat, and we'll be sure to follow up with you after the presentation. Now, let's go ahead and get started with today's topic. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit your questions into the chat box on your Zoom control panel. And as time allows, we will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. Without further delay, I will now pass over to our speaker today, Megan Dodge, Enterprise Customer Success Manager at SkySlope. Good morning, Megan.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I hope everyone's doing all right. Thanks for letting me crash your meeting today. I see that you're already recording this, so that's great. I don't have to worry about that. I hope everyone's having a good day. Like you just mentioned, today I'll be going over, actually, I don't know if you mentioned it, but today we'll be going over some SkySlope related stuff, some newer stuff that maybe you guys aren't using yet. I just want to let you know, I don't know that I can see the chat on my end. So if there are questions coming in and I'm not responding to them, just let me know. Or maybe
I'll take care of that for you on my end here, Megan.
Oh, awesome. I was going to say maybe no one said anything in the chat yet, but cool. So let's go ahead and get started because I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time today. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, it doesn't want me to share my screen. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Can you see my screen and still hear me okay?
Yep, got you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be covering, as it shows here, not only a little bit of SkySlope, but also our Forms and Digisign tool. I'm not sure if everybody on this call is in the same region or if we have everybody kind of spread out nationwide. As you mentioned, Allison James is nationwide. I'm located in California. SkySlope headquarters is in California. So today, if it's all right and not confusing, I'll just go through this flow with California forms. But we do have forms available in more states than just California. So just want to point that out there. I keep rambling on and you might be wondering who I am. Well, my name's Megan. I'm on the customer success team here at SkySlope. I've been working here for 4 years. Some fun facts about me on the screen there. And I'll be answering your guys' SkySlope related questions today. So feel free to put those in the chat as we progress, and I'll be kind of stopping periodically, seeing if you have any questions. Speaking of questions, if you're not already familiar with SkySlope support, in my opinion, we really do have the best support team. They are, number one, real human beings. So that's already a plus. And they respond to any chats within 10 seconds or less and calls on the second ring. So if you chat into support, you're going to get a pretty immediate response. So if anything is ever urgent, we always have our team here for you 24/7. All right, so what is SkySlope Forms? What are we going to kind of touch on today? I have this broken down into 3 steps here. So this last part we might be familiar with, which is creating files in SkySlope and doing the kind of transaction management piece. This is like the main bread and butter of SkySlope that people have been using SkySlope for years. But now you can do everything in SkySlope if you want to. So we can access our association forms right here in SkySlope, fill those out, send them right in SkySlope using our signing tool called Digisign. And then we can kind of do that last part, which is the transaction management bit and still doing all that. So I'll go ahead and get right into my demo account. Now, I'm not in the Allison James account because I didn't want to mess anything up in there. But when you log into SkySlope, if you've never logged in before, it'll pretty much look like this, except it'll be Allison James branding, not SkySlope branding. For starters, for those who have never logged into SkySlope before, I do want to point out that on the home page, we have this, your logo right here is going to be your home button. So if you don't know that, now you know, you'll get back to this home page. And then I also want to point out that our support is just a click away right here. You can just click on this person with the headset. Now, I mentioned we're going to be talking about forms, and you'll probably notice there's not a forms button on this home page. Every account is different. Some accounts want the forms button. Some accounts don't want the forms button on their home page. So the good news is it's right here under this apps button. So right next to your name, I can see that there's an apps button. This is how I'm going to get to forms. So I'll just click right into this. You can also just go to forms.skyslope.com if you want to do that. But if you're already logged into SkySlope, you can get there. Now, I've already been in this forms tool and used it. Obviously, you can see I have a bunch of files here, but I do want to point out that the very first time you log into SkySlope Forms, it is going to ask which regions you're a part of, just so that way we can populate the correct forms for you. That's kind of a one and done question. You won't be asked that again. Since I've already answered that question, I'm not seeing that here. So you'll notice I have a bunch of files already here, but let's say, let me set the scene here. Let's say I am a realtor at Allison James. Perhaps I'm in California because in real life I am. And maybe I'm at a listing appointment, or, I've just talked to a seller and they confirm that they want to work with me. So I have a new listing essentially. Well, now I can come into SkySlope, access all of those forms, send them out, and do everything right here. So I'm just going to create a new file to start. And this will be for the new seller that I'm working with. So I'm just kind of answering some key questions here. Who's my client? What's her name? We'll call her Sally Seller, very original here. So Sally Seller, she's selling her home. Here I can see just putting in some information about the property. I'm actually just going to put in some fake information. I'll say that this is a test file. You can see that there is an MLS import. So for example, if this was a purchase instead of a listing, I can kind of import the information about the listing. So we'll go ahead and put the zip code in here. And I'm going to put in the Sacramento zip code because that is where SkySlope is headquartered. In case you were wondering, in case you didn't know that. Last question here, or one of the last questions, how do I want to name my file? This is just for referencing it later. I like to stick to the address. You could stick to the client, whatever you prefer. And then down here, I can see some templates. So depending on how you typically use forms, a lot of folks will have templates. Some people call them prepared packets. A lot of folks will have those set up. And basically what that does is it just populates a bunch of forms for me, so I don't have to manually pick them out every single time. So let's go ahead and choose a template, and then we can see what that looks like. So I'll choose this template, residential listing, and I'll go ahead and hit this blue button that says create. All right, so I can pause here for a moment. Are there any questions that have come up so far about even just getting into SkySlope Forms, creating this file, or anything I've done so far? Cool, we'll keep chugging along. So I can see that I already have some forms populated here. These are the ones that are populated from my template, so I don't have to manually add any forms. And by manually, I don't mean actually upload the form. I mean, click on this add forms button and find it. Let's say I didn't have a template, or let's say I had a template, but it was, missing a certain form. I needed to add another addendum or something like that. Well, in order to access your forms, you can just click on this add forms button right here. This is my demo account, as I mentioned before. So I have quite a few random libraries. Like you'll see that there's a Canada one in here, but I also have this car library. So you can kind of filter right here to see which library you want to work with. I can see I have my broker library here. So those forms are here if I want to filter to just see my broker library. If I want to filter to just see California forms, I can go ahead and click on that and add those this way. So this is another way to add forms. You just click this add button, or you can search for what you're looking for. For example, if I want an exclusive right to sell or listing agreement, I can kind of just type that in and it'll narrow down what I'm looking for. So we'll go ahead and grab our exclusive listing agreement here. Some other things, maybe I wanted to grab an agency disclosure. Again, I'm just typing in what I'm looking for and then I can see it here. So we'll go ahead and add that as well. So I'm just adding some forms here. Again, if you have a template, you just wouldn't have to do this. They would populate for you so that you didn't have to add them. Once I'm done adding, I'll hit this blue button that says next, and I'm taken right back to the screen I was at before, but I can see these additional forms that I just added. Now, let me see if it does look like there's a question here. Does this form take the place of having the listing agreement in CAR? So exactly. So SkySlope has, with the case of California, because those are the forms that I'm using right now, SkySlope has an agreement with CAR. So CAR sends us their forms, just like also in Florida Realtors. I'm not sure if that's the exact name off the top of my head, but the association, the main association in Florida, we have an agreement with them. They send us their association forms and we host them on our site. So it's just another platform that you can access your association forms on. So if you guys are wondering, where does SkySlope even get these forms? We get them from the association directly. Should have clarified that. Good question. Are there any other questions so far on how I've created this file, how I've added forms, or anything else? So somebody said that they're unable to add other associations. I would love to know the other associations. Seeing as Allison James is in all 50 states, right now, unfortunately, SkySlope Forms isn't in all 50 states. That's our plan. We're in a majority of the states, but depending on where you are, we might not have those associations quite yet. So I'm sorry about that, but let me know. Maryland. Okay. We can talk about this towards the end if we want. We are, there's a bunch of those smaller Maryland associations that we are in contract talks with. So we will have those soon. Funny enough, we just talked about that the other day. So I know that off the top of my head. I'm going to keep chugging along, but as you guys have questions, please put those in the chat. So I have my forms here. Again, I can add them and by clicking on this add forms button, or if I have a template, they'll just kind of appear here for me. I don't have to click on that add forms button. So I'm just going to click on these and fill these out and send them because I don't want to do all these because honestly, this is a demo account and these are a little bit funky. So we're just going to grab these two forms that I just added and we'll hit this blue button that says fill and send. So we're kind of just following the blue buttons along here. So this is the area where I would fill out my form. Now, I'm not going to bore you guys by filling out this whole thing, but I do want to show you, you can see here some of the details already listed. For example, the brokerage, ABC brokerage. This is just a fake brokerage, right? The license number, again, just like a fake license number, but anything that you've added to your profile already, that'll apply on the form. So you don't have to worry about adding that. Also, anything that I added in the very beginning when it asked me, who is my seller and what is the property address, all of that jazz, I'm not going to have to add that again. So anything that you've already put in forms, you're not going to have to put that twice. So just kind of wanted to point that out here. There are some bits that I do want to fill out. Here we go. So for example, like the listing price, I am going to put in here some key bits of information. And then also the listing date I'm going to put in here, just to show you guys kind of what it looks like to fill this out. So everything's fillable right here. You don't have to do anything funky. I'm just going to say text here and you can see kind of what that looks like. I can zoom in if I want to. So if that wasn't big enough for me, I can fill all of that out right here. Same thing on this next form, can go ahead and fill that out here. But again, I'm not going to bore you guys by filling all of that out. Let's see. Oh, I don't see any new questions. Okay. Let's see here. So we'll go ahead and say, there we go. Any questions on filling out this form? Or not this form specifically, but like filling out forms in SkySlope and what that looks like? So again, anything that should be fillable, that will obviously be fillable. And then when we get to the signing portion, we'll see what that looks like as well, which is where we're going next. And again, I'm just showing California forms because I'm here in California, but we do have majority of the states, we do have a forms contract with. All right. So again, just following this blue button, I'm going to go ahead and hit prepare signature. This is going to take me to our signing tool, Digisign. So I'll go to prepare the signature. I see the envelope name, as well as who I'm sending this to, Sally Seller. You'll remember in the beginning, it asked me who my client was, so it knows who I'm sending this to. I'll go ahead and hit this blue next button. So again, just following the blue buttons, just follow the blue buttons and you'll be good to go. Now, once in Digisign, if I scroll through this document, I will see that any signature or dates or anything like that, if this form has come from within SkySlope, meaning this is an association form or this is a brokerage form, and this form has come from within SkySlope. I grabbed it from SkySlope. I didn't upload it myself, right? From like an outside system. If it comes from within SkySlope, all of your signature, date, initial, checkboxes, all that stuff will be mapped for you. So you don't have to worry about placing anything manually. So we're trying to cut out as much manual work as possible. So again, I can see any signatures or dates. Those are all here. I didn't grab the seller's disclosure in this scenario, but the seller's disclosure, all of those checkboxes will be mapped. They'll be mapped in groups, so your client can't click yes and no. So everything, again, if the form comes from within SkySlope, everything will be mapped for you here. Now, in this scenario, I only have one signer. If I had two signers, those two signers would actually be in different colors. So signer one would be, maybe green, and signer two would be maybe blue. So you can see all of that on the screen here. Now, since this is a California form, I actually don't have a strike through option, but I do also want to note that all states other than California do have a strike through option available. It's right next to this text field. It just says strike through, and you're able to strike through on the form right here. I'm not trying to encourage strike through because I know that that's a little bit funky, but just wanted to point that out since it's not here because California doesn't allow it. Also just want to show if, let's say I needed to add another signature or initial or what have you, I can just click on what I want, click on where it goes. I can move it all around. I can resize it. You're able to copy it and then paste it or highlight it and delete it, whatever you want. So there's a lot of options going on here. But I don't want to, take up too much of your guys' time showing you that, but I can if you want to. Let's see. So we have some questions here. Let's see here. When I have multiple forms to sign, when I go to the stage of sending to sign, the order changes. I would, honestly, that is a good question for support. That's not the intended behavior. Whatever way that you have selected the forms, that's the way that it should be showing. So what I would do is, if you haven't already, let support know, because they can do like a screen share with you and see what's going on exactly. And then if it is, it could be a variety of things. It could be you just need to clear your cache and cookies. It could be, something small like that. So I don't know off the top of my head, but it should not be behaving that way. So I would definitely let support know if you have not already. Somebody else asked, do you have to fill out the entire cover sheet information? There are kind of two different places where you can fill out cover sheet information. Once I sign this and send this, I can get back to that question. But there's kind of two places that work together to form a cover sheet. One of them being the kind of about me section, let's call it, the user profile section of forms, which is going to ask you about your brokerage and your license number and things like that. And then the other would be when you actually go to create a file, whether it's a listing or transaction, it's going to ask you about the property. And so those two work together to kind of form a cover sheet. Also, if your association has a cover sheet, then obviously feel free to fill that out, and then that'll apply on all of your forms. Let's see. So let's see. Somebody asked about DocuSign and SkySlope. So SkySlope's signature tool is Digisign. So forms, if you're in SkySlope Forms, it's going to kind of work with Digisign automatically. If you don't want to use Digisign, prior to getting to this screen, you're able to kind of download a copy and you can drag and drop that into DocuSign if you want. But Forms is going to flow directly into Digisign since Digisign is a SkySlope product. Let's see here. Somebody else asked, I'm not sure about that. So somebody asked, where can I get all the information on forms needed for selling versus buying forms? I think what you're asking there is, you know, maybe if you're a newer agent, maybe you're not, but just kind of like, what forms do I need to send out when I have a new listing or a new transaction based on the property type? I would say that's a good question to ask your folks at Allison James about, because it definitely depends based on where you're at. California is going to be totally different than somewhere else. But good question. And then somebody else asked, what happens if you make an error on the document when you send it out? So let's say, you know, I put too many signatures here or something like that, or I wanted to add a text field and I forgot to add that text field. What happens, you know, if I send this out and I kind of made that mistake? Well, let's go ahead and send this out and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So you probably guessed it, going to hit this blue button right here. So I'll go ahead and hit send. This is the email that it's sending. I can obviously change it. I'm not going to, so I'll just go ahead and say send for signatures. Now I'm going to be taken right back to kind of this screen. I can say, hey, I'm done. I'm taken right back to my file that I was working at before. So this is the forms file that I originally created. You can see here I have that file details tab. So this is all the information that I entered in the beginning about, you know, who's the seller, all that. I have the forms tab. So this is where I was adding those forms and, you know, eventually filling them out and later sending them. And then I have my envelopes tab, and here I can see anything that has been sent out using Digisign. So SkySlope Forms and Digisign. The good news is if you've sent something out, we have these three little dots here and you're able to resend the envelope, cancel signing altogether, or edit. So if this has not been fully signed, you can still edit it. Now, if it has been fully signed, obviously you're not going to be able to edit it. But in that case, we can kind of just drag and drop that form back into Digisign. And from there, if we want to just add whatever was missing, send that one missing thing to our client. So any additional questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I do want to quickly show you guys what the Digisign process actually looks like. All right, so whenever you send an email, or sorry, whenever you send forms via SkySlope and Digisign, your client is going to receive an email that looks like this. It'll say that you have requested their signature. The email will come from you. If they want to preview their documents, they can do so right here. If they want to get straight into signing them, they can just click on this Get Started button right here. And yes, they can do this on their phone. That's a common question that I get. So I'll go ahead and click on Get Started. So now I'm kind of playing the role of the seller here. Previously, I was playing the role of the agent. Now, you know, this is a multi-act show. So I'll go ahead and just click on Start. And this is going to walk me through everywhere I need to sign. You can see I have little pop-ups that are telling me if it's required or not. When I go to click and sign it, I'm able to either choose a pre-populated signature or draw my own. So whatever your client prefers. I'm going to choose pre-populated here. And then I'm just kind of clicking next through this document. Again, any required item is going to show as required. If it is optional, I'll be able to skip it. If it's required, I'm not really able to skip it. I mean, I can skip over it, but it's just going to take me right back there. So again, just clicking, initialing all this stuff. Signature, just one click. At the very bottom here, I can see kind of my progress. So I have 10 out of 14 things signed. It looks like everything is pretty much required here, but again, if it was optional, I could kind of just hit next and not fill it out. All right, so once everything is signed by the client, they will then say that they are finished signing, this blue button right here. And your client will receive a copy to their email. You will receive a copy to your email. You'll also receive a copy right here in Forms. And then one last place, there will be a copy in one last place, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But are there any questions on the signing process or, Digisign or Forms, anything that I've shown so far? Oh, so similar question as before, if you make an error on a doc that was sent and signed, do you create a new document to send and sign or take care of the correction? So it really depends, it's up to you. If it was a document that just had one minor error, you might want to just upload that document and either, strike, I don't want to encourage strike through, but kind of like edit what you need to edit. If it was a document that didn't have a lot of initials and checkboxes, etc., then maybe you just want to resend the whole thing if it is fully signed. Again, I would say that that's personal preference, but you can do either basically. Any other questions on, I know that I want to show you guys, circle back to that cover sheet question, but any other questions on just Forms and Digisign? So again, I went ahead and created a file here. That file now lives right here. I can see that. Filled out my file details, grabbed the forms that I wanted to fill out and sent those out through Digisign, and now they are fully signed. So the very last part that I'm going to show you guys is what this looks like once I'm ready to turn it into my admin at my brokerage. So everything I've done so far, lives in the Forms part of SkySlope, but when I'm ready to transition it to the transaction management part, that's what we're going to show next. But again, just going to pause here for a minute. Any questions that have come up?
Looks like we're good for now.
Okay, sweet. So we'll keep chugging along here. So just like I clicked on apps to get to Forms, I'm going to click on apps again to get back to my regular SkySlope homepage. So I don't have to like sign out or anything. I'm just going to a different section. That's all that happened there. So again, apps to Forms, and then apps back to SkySlope. So seeing as I have a listing agreement signed, I'm now going to come in and create a property file for that listing. So before I had a Forms file, now I'm going to have a property file. Had I been working with a buyer and I have a purchase agreement signed, then I would come in here and create a transaction. But that's not the case in this scenario. I'm working with a seller. So I'll come in and create a listing. So I'll click on this. Now, by doing this, I'm essentially letting my admin, my brokers, my staff know, hey, I have a new listing. Here's all the information about it. And I'm going to start turning in some documents to you to review. That's the part that I'm doing right now. When I go to enter my listing, seeing as I already put all of that information into Forms, I definitely don't want to do it twice. So I can actually just connect my Forms file and my SkySlope file, as you can see here. So Forms and SkySlope, this is how they're talking to each other. It's this very first question, basically asking you, hey, do you want to connect your Forms file? So also, it looks like my audio is being weird. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes.
I don't know if that last part was missed, but basically all I said was, this is how the two talk to each other. So when you go to create a file, I'm seeing here all of my forms files. Instead of entering that twice, I'm just going to go ahead and click on this forms file so that I don't have to do that twice. So I'll go ahead and select this one. And then I'll hit next question. Now this is again my demo account. So I see a lot of, checklists here. Your checklist will be just the checklist that you guys see in your area typically. And actually, oh, there we go. I don't know what's going on with my headphones. So sorry guys, if I cut out, let me know. So I'll go ahead and select my checklist, but then everything else, pretty much if I've added it onto the form, I don't need to add it here. So for example, when it asks me for the list price, well, I already put that on the form, so I don't need to put that down again. SkySlope already knows that. I did not enter my commission on that form, so I'm just going to throw that in here real quick. My listing date and expiration date, however, I did put on my form. And so again, that information is already here. I don't have to enter that twice. So kind of trying to eliminate that double data entry. And lastly, who is selling the property? Looks like I forgot to put in the phone number there, but everything else, Sally seller and her email, all of that information I already put in my forms file. So again, don't have to add that again. I'm just kind of clicking next through these questions to make sure this is correct. NHD, some states have this, is more of a California thing. So I'm just going to skip over this. Also pre-opening escrow. I don't need to do this if I don't want to. So I'm just going to kind of skip over that. But if you want to pre-open escrow, this just sends an email to the escrow/title contact with the information you've already entered. So that's what's going on here. So now it's just asking me if everything looks right. The good news is, even if something is wrong, I can always change it later. So don't worry too much about this. So I'll go ahead and create my listing. And now I have a property file in SkySlope. So again, this is just a demo file. So the checklist is going to be a little bit different for you guys. But you can see here, I have my file. There's some different tabs here, listing and contacts. My checklist is kind of my main bread and butter of SkySlope, of where I'm turning my documents into my admin and staff. And the good news is, if I head over to the documents tab, any of those fully signed forms, any of those, here we go. Here, you know what? I'm just gonna not use those headphones, sorry. So last thing here is any of those fully signed forms are going to be here in this file as well. So kind of key benefits of using SkySlope Forms as well as SkySlope is, number one, everything's in one place. So we're trying to make things easier there. Number two, when I go to create a property file, any information that I've already entered is going to populate for me. And then number three, I can see that those fully signed documents are going to upload a copy to this file as well. So I don't really have to worry about getting documents in. I still want to get them onto the checklist when I'm ready to turn them in. But as far as actually uploading the documents and getting them in, if I'm using SkySlope Forms, I don't have to worry about doing that, because it'll kind of just upload a copy here for me. Cool. So any questions about that whole process, or the difference between kind of a SkySlope file versus, or sorry, a forms file versus a property file, anything like that? Let's see here. So somebody asked about APN, legal description, year built, etc. So since this is a demo account, those weren't required items, or sorry, required questions. If you've entered that onto the form, that information will flow into the file. So essentially, if something has been added into a form, it will then flow into SkySlope. Somebody asked about a list of vendors. So I think what we're talking about here is a directory, and you do have access to a directory, or like your contacts area. If you click under your name and you go to my account, there's actually an entire directory section here. And this is just in the main SkySlope area. So I'll go back to this form here, or sorry, go back to this file. Any other questions? I do want to jump back into SkySlope Forms just to answer that previous question that somebody had asked about a cover sheet. But I'll look out for other questions as well. So to the person that asked about the cover sheet, I kind of want to show you what I was talking about here. So number one, if your association like California CAR has a cover sheet. So if your association has a cover sheet, that will be available in SkySlope as well. But there's also, I'm back here in forms, there's also some different areas that you can fill out information. So the first place, if you click on your name, you can see it says user profile. So this is where I can add information about myself, you know, like who I am, what's my license number, phone number, MLS code. Down here, I can add my brokerage name and all that. So again, that's under user profile. You can add this as kind of like a one and done situation. And then this will flow onto your forms wherever it's applicable. And then the second place, let's go back to SkySlope Forms again. I'm just going to click into a forms file here. Anything that we've added to this file details, this is also going to flow onto the forms. So here I only have that one contact, but I can add a bunch of contacts here if I want to. All right. Let's see, other questions. Somebody asked about reverse and forward arrows. I'm not sure where I was when you asked about that, if I'm honest. Let's see here. Are there any other questions that you guys have?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. Oh, looks like somebody has a question. Feel free to type out your question or whatever you'd like. Also, for the person who asked about going over tasks, honestly, I'm not sure if we have the time allotted to go over, you know, all of tasks and everything today. But what I am going to do is follow up with your question with a tutorial. So there are, I don't know if you saw that, but there are a bunch of tutorials on the support page. So I just sent you the one on tasks and reminders to the person that asked that. Let's see here. Going back to the chat, how do I upload completed forms into SkySlope from outside of SkySlope? Good question. So if we're talking about how do I add it to the actual property file here, like, you know, outside of SkySlope, it didn't come from inside of SkySlope. There's a few ways. Number one, you can actually send in your document to this email right here. Every single SkySlope file is going to have its own unique email address, and anything associated with this email address is going to upload into SkySlope. You can also drag and drop any documents in here, or you can just click on upload document if you happen to have a copy on your desktop. Most folks aren't going to save a copy onto their desktop. So a lot of folks are just using this email right here for any documents from, for example, from an agent on the other side. You can just send it into your SkySlope file email. I'm also going to send you a tutorial. So on the support page, there are a bunch of helpful tutorials if you guys haven't checked those out before. Let's see here. So what I'm doing right here, just so you guys can see. Over here on the support page, so if I click on this little person with the headset, not only am I going to have access to SkySlope support, which again, they answer questions, chats in 10 seconds and calls on the second ring. But if I have anything specific that I'm looking for, so for example, upload documents, right? I can go ahead and search for that. And there's a bunch of tutorials on this page. There's usually videos and written guides, step-by-step, showing you how to do every single thing in SkySlope. So all of this is on the support page. So feel free to check this out. Again, pretty much anything you can think of, there is a tutorial for it. So just want to let you guys know that. Somebody asked, when in Forms, is there anything that needs to be done to transfer documents to SkySlope, or is it automatically done? That's a good question. So in the very beginning, when I created this file, this transaction management file, it asked me basically, do you want to connect your Forms file? If you do that, then your fully signed forms will upload here. Now, I do want to kind of preface that, let's say I printed these out, or, you know, if I emailed these to my client and I didn't use Digisign, I didn't go through the whole Forms and Digisign, then a copy's not going to upload here. But obviously, you know that if you're like printing it out, it's not going to upload a copy here. But yes, in the very beginning, as long as I say, hey, I have the Forms file, I want to connect it, and then the two are connected basically indefinitely, and any fully signed documents will upload a copy here. Somebody else asked about this SkySlope email. Is this the same every single time? So this email is unique to every single file. So property specific email, it's generated by SkySlope. This is essentially like a fingerprint for the file. Every single file that you create is going to have its own unique email. And you can use this to get documents in from, you know, outside of SkySlope. For example, agent on the other side, those kind of documents. You can also use this email and just CC it on your client correspondence. And then you'll actually have a log of all of that client correspondence right here in the log tab. So feel free to CC this email on any of your client communication, and then you'll have all of that here in SkySlope as well. So it's more than just a document storage place. Unfortunately, I can't show every single thing.
That would be a much longer
Yeah,
webinar.
we would be here all day. Oh, somebody asked about these arrows. This is just rotating the document. That's all that's doing. Sorry, I never use these, so I honestly was like, I don't know what you're talking about with arrows. This is just rotating the document. So if it's like landscape and I want to make it portrait, that sort of a thing. All right. You guys have some pretty great questions. I don't know if I'm going over time, so please stop me if I am. But if there are any other questions, let me know.
Any last questions for Megan before we end the SkySlope webinar for today?
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for your time. And again, for letting me crash your national webinar. I appreciate it. Happy to jump on these in the future if we have other questions, you know, maybe some other parts of SkySlope that you guys want to see, but I appreciate your time. And definitely, if you haven't already, feel free to poke around in SkySlope Forms. Good news is you can't break anything, so you can always create a test file or whatever you want there. And then support, really bank on support. They are here 24/7. They're our biggest department for a reason. They're able to do screen shares with you, phone calls with you. If you have a question at 1 in the morning, hopefully you're not working then, but if you do, they'll be here to answer it. So just wanted to let you know that.
Looks like we had a couple of straggling questions.
Oh, let's see here. So these two last questions, where do you find the tutorials? So you can find those on just the SkySlope support site. So if you just Google SkySlope support, or if you happen to be in SkySlope already, you can just click on this little person with the headset right here. This is going to take you to support. And then the tutorials, if you want to, you can kind of browse by product. So like SkySlope or Forms, or you can just search what you're looking for. So for example, if I'm looking up I can just type in forms and I can see here, there's some options like how to create a forms file. I'm going to click on that. So the tutorial's right here on the support page. And then the last question, if you forget to link your forms file with your SkySlope file in the beginning, there is not a way to retroactively do that on your guys' end, but that is something you can reach out to support about, and they can kind of retroactively link the two. So that would be a good support question if that ever happens.
Fantastic. Great last question there. And thank you so much, Megan. Thank you everyone for joining us. And obviously a huge thank you, Megan, for hosting our webinar this month and providing with us and our agents some fantastic insights into SkySlope Forms. Have a great day, everyone, and we hope to see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, guys.